Orion's in-space maneuvering capabilities and provide further confidence in docking to another lunar space vehicle like the Human Landing System that will be part of the Artemis 3 mission ahead of future moon landings. These are just a few of the highlights of the very first of 10 flight days as we await for confirmation of good leak checks inside the capsule integrity. And there's a lot more to this mission. A reminder that this is, of course, a test flight. The purpose here is to demonstrate procedures, systems, and life inside Orion on a mission around the moon for the first time, and give further confidence in the capabilities that are charting a return to the lunar surface. You may be able to see from this view the suits themselves inflating. This is, again, a pressure check, verifying that the suits are leak-free ahead of the ascent portion of today's flight. How you see the crew now with visors down will be the configuration of their ascent all the way through core stage separation about a little more than 8 minutes after booster ignition. All right, here in Mission Control Houston, we are continuing to follow along, standing by for confirmation of good leak checks. In the meantime, there are no showstoppers here in Mission Control Houston, and we continue to monitor the countdown to launch. Megan, we'll send it back to you over at the Space Coast.
Hey, Gary, thank you so much. Yeah, as we wait for confirmation of a successful leak check for all 4 astronauts, why don't we go back to Daryl, again, who has been following along with the launch countdown as we inch closer to the opening of our 2-hour launch window.
All right, thank you, Megan. And yes, getting some good communication. It's great to hear from the crew inside, even though it is as simple as a comm check. It's really good to hear their voices as they move through those various comm checks and then get ready for their suit leak checks. Fantastic views inside Orion that you're looking at now. Give you an update on the weather outside. We're still 80% go for our 2-hour launch window, which starts at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time and closes at 8:24 p.m. Eastern Time. That's the good news. The bad news is that we've got some rain showers that are starting to head in. Looks like it may miss the pad. Wouldn't matter if it rained on it or not, though. It's received some rain earlier today. Water isn't going to hurt anything out there at this point. But the rest of the area might be getting a little bit wet, which may include the hostess, so keep an eye out for that. As we're watching with the astronauts inside the Orion Integrity spacecraft, you'll be hearing more and more from them, especially Christina Cook, who is Mission Specialist number 1. She not only is going to be making history.
All crew, visors open, suit loop leak check complete.
OTC.
Okay, there you heard the suit leak check complete. They check those suits for leaks in astronaut crew quarters. They check them again inside the spacecraft. As you can see, the closeout crew, our astronaut support person moving around, turned off the camera, and so now we're looking from outside the Orion spacecraft looking towards, oh no, let's see. get oriented here. Well, there we go. Back inside, we've got the view. But basically what I was saying about Christina Cook is that she will have the role of reading.
CM is ready for closeout, performing video sweep using drag on camera.
OD.
She will have the role of reading out a pressure reading that tells the team that...
and CDR or NTD?
Go ahead, NTD.
Yeah, we're going to do another cleanup on those suit leak check messages that we got from since we're done with that now.
Integrity copies.
Yeah.
And that's communication going between Orion Commander Reed Wiseman and NASA Test Director Jeff Spaulding. As I was saying, Christina Cook will be reading measurements from the counterbalance assist arm. So you're going to hear her be asked by the NASA Test Director to read that. That CBA, counterbalance assist arm, it's mechanically latched by the closeout crew using tools, but there's a hydraulic assist. It's pneumatically opened and closed rather with a pressure assist that helps open it up. Not only that hatch, but also the last hatch. There's 2 hatches there that we'll see that will be closed. But this is in case of an emergency out there at the pad. If the crew, for some reason, needed to exit quickly, then they would exit the spacecraft by pulling that lever, which would open both hatches. Those hatches are heavy. The Orion hatch is hundreds of pounds.
HHD cameras 1 and 2 both set to record.
OTC copies.
And just an update on the launch countdown, continuing to monitor the team's communications here in Firing Room 1. Everything going really smoothly so far. We don't have any significant open constraints to launch at this time, so we continue counting down. And for now, we'll send it back to the host desk with Megan and Nicole.
Thank you so much, Daryl. And so we heard some of the communications over Orion to Earth 1, and it sounds like we are now moving into the hatch prep and closure phase. We will now start to see the closeout crew getting out of Orion soon so that they can start getting ready to, again, close up Orion, close the 2 hatches, and then get out of the pad.
Yeah, the closeout team will take the hatch seals off, and they'll inspect the seals, make sure everything's ready to go, and then do a few last-minute configurations before they close that hatch. And then, like Daryl talked about, then Christina will have a role in looking at the CBA there. So.
Yeah, you might have heard them say over the loops again that drag-on camera. So basically, it's a camera that they can move around, and you might have seen it in a couple of our shots already. But they will take that camera and literally go and inspect the seal that. There's 2 seals, actually, 2 seals that go around the entire area of the hatch just to make sure that everything looks good. And that camera feed is being directly shown to NASA teams who need to monitor that.
Yeah, they want to make sure there's not a single hair or piece of dust on those, make sure that there's no damage and everything's ready to go so that the seal, they will do a leak check on this hatch seal as well. Make sure it passes.
Yeah, and we'll know they're doing that because we will actually see one of the closeout crew members with a hand pump, and they will pressurize, again, just the seals, and they have to see if it will hold pressure for just a minute. And if it does, then they will go ahead to pressurize the entire Orion spacecraft. And then that, again, is to make sure that the spacecraft is holding the right amount of pressure. And that one's a lot longer. It'll take them like 8 minutes. Like it takes time to pressurize it, then they have to hold pressure, and then it takes time to depressurize it.
Right, and they want to measure the difference in pressures at the beginning and end of that and make sure that it holds the right amount of pressure so that when they get to the vacuum of space, obviously the capsule holds its pressure.
Yep. Okay. Well, again, as we continue to watch operations that are happening at the pad inside of Orion, why don't we go over to Banana Creek. It's one of our viewing locations here at Kennedy Space Center. They will have a spectacular view, and we actually have NASA's Leah Martin there chatting with a big group of people surrounded by a lot of folks on bleachers there.
Hey, Megan, yeah, tons of people out here today, thousands of people gathering at Banana Creek to enjoy NASA's next big mission and humanity's next great leap today. It's a gorgeous day, and I'm joined here actually by some people who are probably the only people on center who are a little bit more excited than me to see this rocket lift off. Where are you from, and why are you here?
So we're from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. We're a group of 7 aerospace senior engineering students traveling here with Josh Dobbs, former quarterback of the University of Tennessee, with his extraordinary Dobbs Foundation.
Now, you were actually telling me a little bit earlier, you're here local, you're from Orlando. What's it like being an aerospace engineer and then having the opportunity to come back here to the Space Coast and see this mission lift off today?
It is absolutely amazing. I feel like the little 9-year-old girl inside me is so excited. Like, I'm from around here. I grew up watching launches in my backyard, and so this seems like such a full circle happy moment for me.
Now, you are an aerospace engineer looking hopefully to join the workforce in the future. How does it feel to be here and see firsthand what that work does?
It's just so cool to see what I've been working for the last 4 years, and then 12 years before that, just actually be physically happening in front of me. It's something I never dreamed of as a kid.
And I'm actually joined here by the pastronaut himself, Mr. Josh Dobbs. Now, you have a history with NASA as well. You did an externship here. And how did that kind of play into your passion for aerospace and then the foundation that actually provided this opportunity for these students today?
100%. So I spent a month here around the Artemis 1 mission, which was a tremendous opportunity to learn about the space program and also what's next. And so to be back here for Artemis 2, and unfortunately, Artemis 1 went in the middle of the season, so it's surreal to be here for Artemis 2. And with my foundation, like, the goal is to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that I've had and pass them along to the future of the industry and give them the opportunity to see what all their hard work can accumulate into. So it's an honor to be here. We're really appreciative of all the engineers and all the hard work that's gone into this moment, and we're excited to watch history happen today.
Absolutely. And as a group, I think if you guys had one well wish for the team today, what would you say? I think we can all join together, maybe say, go Artemis. Go Artemis.
That was a fun interview, and again, just so neat to see all the people who are here. I mean, still hours before liftoff, not even hours before liftoff, but hours before a 2-hour launch window. So people just really committed to being here and seeing it in person.
Yeah, you can see the Banana Creek is already buzzing.
Yeah.
Back there behind Leah. You could hear the chatter in the background. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, you could tell that it's a lot louder than we noticed because we just have very good mics, but you know, she's obviously yelling over a huge crowd there. So super fun, super exciting, and yes, I hope that we all get to see liftoff here shortly. Okay, so as we know, Victor, Reed, Christina, and Jeremy will have their hands full during their mission. So for some of their test flight objectives, let's go back to Megan Carter at the moon board.
All right, as we have seen from those camera views, their capsule is very compact, obviously. So let me show you a few cool things about this piece. The Orion capsule is going to only be about 16.8 feet in diameter and a whopping 10.5 in height. Think of it about the same cubic feet as 2 minivans. So obviously every piece of that capsule has been planned with purpose. And a really great example of that is going to be these seats that we have seen that live view of. Now, these seats are going to be out for launch, re-entry, and splashdown, but in between, they are stored in between to give them more room for daily activities and things like that. While they are on board, obviously they are going to have a lot of things to do. One of those is going to be to manually fly Orion, as we've discussed, but they also have several other objectives as well. And they're going to be doing lots of system checkouts, checking out the service module, making sure everything is working correctly. They're also, like I said, going to have a chance to manually fly. Now, this was taken during one of their training simulations, but as you can see here, they will have advanced flight displays, hand controllers, touchscreen interface, faces. So much to work with and practice with as well. Now, while on board, they will also have the ability to eat those shelf-stable meals that are designed specifically for microgravity. I think I saw somewhere that one of their meals is going to be mac and cheese and brisket, so that makes the Southern in me very happy. All right, but they are going to have also some time to look at some things like power and propulsion. They will have 3 key propulsion systems that are going to help power Orion as well. And speaking of power, I want to bring you back to the service module real quick because I wanted to point out these 4 solar panels. These are going to take about 18 minutes to unfold like giant wings, and they're going to stretch 62 feet from end to end, and these are going to help power the service module and in turn provide what the crew needs for their journey. So as you can see, spacecraft is built specifically for what we need and to guide them and get them home safely. All right, back over to you, Megan.
Thank you so much, Megan. You know, it's taken thousands of people many years to get to us to where we are today. Let's meet some of the people of Artemis who've made this flight test possible.
I am the Artemis launch director.
I'm the Orion Crew Survival System Manager.
I am the Artemis II Chief Training Officer.
I'm the SLS Launch Integration and Mission Operations Lead.
I am the Recovery Director.
And I'm Boeing's Core Stage IPT Leader at Kennedy Space Center.
I am the Artemis II Entry Flight Director.
And I'm the Closeout Crew Lead for Artemis II.
Our job is to design the spacesuits that the crew will wear for the Artemis II mission. The team here at Johnson Space Center in the Orion Crew Survival Systems Lab does pretty much everything involved with processing the suits, designing the suits, qualifying the suits, testing them for the Orion mission.
The role of the Chief Training Officer is to manage both the planning and the development of how we are going to train our astronauts and run our simulations for our flight control team for the mission, and then go implement that plan.
Recovery team is responsible for 3 things. So recovery is what we call our nominal recovery situation, where we go recover the crew and the capsule at their designated landing site. Rescue is if in case we do need to rescue the crew or they landed somewhere else that we did not plan. And then the retrieval is us getting the capsule if they did land somewhere where we did not expect them to.
My job on SLS is to manage the operations architecture on the SLS program. One of the specific things that we do is support launch operations. It means a lot to be a part of this Artemis team, to show the next generation in seeing what may come.
I am responsible for our core stage processing at Kennedy Space Center. My team is responsible for that core stage, and it's our responsibility to make sure that core stage is safe, built correctly, and there's going to be 4 of our astronauts, and it's going to get them to their ride around the moon.
I've been a flight director for over 10 years now. I worked on the Artemis I mission, and after that mission completed, I was assigned as the entry flight director for Artemis II. I can't wait to see the hatch open after splashdown. That's when we know that our mission will be complete and the crew will have safely returned to the moon and back to Earth.
Closeout Crew is responsible for getting the astronauts up to the white room, getting their helmets and gloves on, getting them into the vehicle safely, connecting all their umbilicals, making sure they're ready to go for launch, and then closing the crew module hatch. The reason we do this is to expand mankind's knowledge. If I can be a part of that, doing anything, I want to do that.
The launch director role really is to step back and kind of take that big picture view of launch. How are we doing on any NCs? How are we doing on our timelines, our procedures? Artemis II is a beginning. It's going to inspire a new generation. It's going to uncover science. It's going to serve as a pathway to places that we have never been before.
And to meet more people of Artemis, you can head to the link we're going to put up on your screen there. Just, again, really nice to see all the faces that have put in the work, the time, the hours, the dedication to get us to today.
Yeah, so many professionals that worked so hard on this mission.
And what was really fun to see is, you know, we interviewed Taylor Hose, closeout crew lead, as he said, and that's who we are now seeing inside of the White Room as they are getting ready to close out Orion and close one of 2 hatches. We have the side hatch of the crew module as well as the launch abort system hatch, correct?
Yeah, the astronauts are in the capsule. They're ready to go, and now the White Room is very busy as they're getting ready to close both of those hatches. It's a great shot right there where you can see them. Almost looks like they're doing that hatch seal inspection that we talked about.
And And so, Nicole, as we continue to see them get ready to close that smaller hatch, again, the crew module side hatch, let's take some questions now.
Sounds good.
A lot has changed since Apollo, and I have a few questions about what's next. What part of the moon are we exploring through Artemis, and what are some of the key points that NASA needs to consider when planning missions like this?
Were you expecting to see Scarlett Johansson? I think that took you.
Yeah, I mean,
took you aback.
We've talked about this, but everybody has an interest in this mission. You know, it's humanity trying to explore and go back to the moon, and I love this question. You know, what part of the moon are we going to? You know, eventually we want to get to the polar regions, the South Pole specifically. We think that there are volatiles there, so water ice, something that can be harnessed as a resource as we create the permanent base on the moon and then try to get onto Mars. But getting to the moon is a tricky mission. You know, we're going further than we have in a long time, and you know, on the International Space Station we're 250 miles from the Earth, and so we're pretty close. We resupply that spacecraft pretty often with cargo missions, but the further and further you get away from Earth, the more you have to think about the lack of cargo, the comm delay. You know, there's a communication delay the further away you get, and so there are different and unique problems as we continue to explore further and further out into the solar system.
And there is so much to learn about the moon, so it's no surprise that, yes, even though our goal is to have a moon base at the lunar South Pole, the lunar South Pole is not the main focus of this lunar flyby. So instead, the crew is going to be focused on observing the far side of the moon. So this is actually an animation of what teams expect the moon to look like if the crew launches today. So this is, of course, the side that faces the moon, and this is the far side of the moon, which when, again, the crew does their lunar flyby on flight day 6, we are expecting this will be their view. What an amazing view and an opportunity.
Yeah, you know, there's so much to learn from this particular mission, because obviously we're not landing with this mission, and so they actually potentially could see the South Pole and kind of scope out what our landing regions look like in the context of the entire moon. But also they're going to see parts of the lunar surface that have never been seen before by the human eye, and so they're going to take these detailed notes. They're going to record themselves talking about what they see. You know, we do a ton of geology training as astronauts, especially this Artemis 2 crew. They did a ton of geology training working with scientists to learn how to pick out the unique portions that we want to go study. You know, what is the context of the moon? What parts of the moon look interesting and look different? You know, the impact craters that we talked about earlier. So really trying to take all the pictures, take all the observations, write down, talk about their observations, and record as much data as we possibly can for the researchers back here on Earth.
Yeah, it's so important to, yes, we're all talking about what they hope to do during this 10-day mission, but you really do have to think about all the training that goes into this. I mean, you have 4 crew members who won't, you know, have the support the way that they've been having this. I mean, they'll be talking through communications, but you know what I mean? It's just them and the moon, right? So they need to be fully aware and equipped with everything that they'll need to do to be able to accomplish the objectives that we hope to accomplish during this mission.
Right, and their specific flyby around the moon, you know, the lighting will be different and the path will be different depending on when we launch. If we launch today, it would be different from tomorrow. And so, you know, they actually had to learn the geography of the moon so that they can orient themselves when they're on the backside of the moon, because they're not going to have communication. You know, they're going to have a, I think, 45+ minute comm blackout while they're while they're on the far side of the moon. And so they themselves have to know what things look like on the moon, how to orient themselves, and how to get the data that we're looking for.
Yeah, really ambitious mission. Excited to be here at the start of it. All right, so another check of the clock, 2 hours, 57 minutes and counting to the opening of our 2-hour launch window for Artemis 2. This pivotal test flight comes 250 years after America began its journey as a nation. As we celebrate that milestone, a special live performance now of our national anthem by singer Ann Wilson.
So proudly we held at the twilight.
A beautiful rendition. Honestly, I'm a little emotional, a little speechless.
Yeah, that was gorgeous.
Yeah. I mean, again, we are a nation of explorers, a nation of curious minds, and to see us again 250 years after our Declaration of Independence was signed to when we are trying to return to the moon for the first time in more than 50 years, really powerful.
Yeah, leading the way back to the moon. It's exciting.
And that's so important to us. You know, we do want to be the leaders in exploration, but we definitely know we can't do that alone. You know, we often hear NASA leadership say that, you know, this is not something one nation can do. This is something that is a collaboration of nations, and that's why we have European countries. We also have Canada, again, joining us on this ambitious test flight.
Yeah, of course, you know, it goes back to the old proverb, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And we want to go far. We want to get onto Mars eventually, and so we're going to get to the moon first, and you can't do that alone.
So thank you again, singer Ann Wilson, for that beautiful rendition, again reminding us of what it is we are trying to accomplish for all, by all. We are now back inside the White Room with the closeout crew. Again, backup astronaut Andre Douglas, number 2 there, just outside in the White Room, which is right outside Orion there, with the crew seated comfortably inside. As you can see, they've dimmed the lights a little bit. The crew has the opportunity to set the ambiance, if you will. They were given the opportunity to adjust the lighting as they see fit, again, just so that they can get comfortable. It's kind of like when we are on a plane and you get the opportunity to...
Sure, yeah, you don't want the bright lights in your eyes. Also, you want to be able to see the screens well, or see the, you know, the tablet on Jeremy's knee well, so they're going to adjust the lighting to what makes sense for the mission.
And we saw in that very quick shot there, our best camera view of the 2 hatches is actually that drag-on camera, like we were saying, that kind of moves around. So sometimes it's hard to show that. So there you have it. You can see that the closeout crew has closed the side hatch. And so right now, that's a panel that they have to close out in order to then close the next hatch, which is the launch abort system hatch. And so, Nicole, can you just quickly, again, talk to people about the 2 hatches, again, crew module first, and then the launch abort system hatch?
Yeah, so the crew module hatch is the one they're working on right now. They just got closed. You can see he's torquing those bolts down. And that is the hatch that completes the Orion capsule. And then you have the launch abort system, which actually is kind of almost a shell that goes around the capsule and holds onto the capsule during launch. And it has its own separate engines that can pull the capsule away from the rocket safely in the case of an off-nominal data point. So it's actually looking at roll rates and attitude and thrust and all sorts of different data in order to make sure the launch is safe. And if it's not, then the launch abort system will pull the crew module away and get them into a splashdown zone safely.
And as we wait for the crew to complete closing that side hatch of the crew module, let's head over back to Banana Creek, where we have Leah Martin standing by with the person who designed this mission's zero gravity indicator, named RISE. It was 2nd grader Lucas Yee from California. Hey, Leah.
Hey, Megan. Yes, of the many special guests we have with us today, I think one of our most exciting guests is Lucas, who's joining us, like you said, all the way from California. He and his family actually worked this as a group project to design the zero gravity indicator. Lucas, can you tell us a little bit about your design?
Yeah.
So you named him RISE. Can you tell me why you picked that name?
It was very remote, representing the Artemis 2 launch and Earthrise. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
So were you really excited to find out that you won the competition and that your zero gravity indicator would be going to space?
Yeah.
So how does it feel? We're actually just across the river right now from Artemis. We can see it from where we're standing. How does it feel to know that design you created is actually currently on that rocket just a couple hours away from going to space?
Really, 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 really surprised and very happy.
Now, Mom, you were telling me on the way over here that it was kind of hitting you what was happening. Tell me a little bit about that.
It's definitely very surreal to be here in person. It's definitely very surreal to be here in person. That Commander Weissman said that it's for all and by all. That we couldn't have said it better. We're just very grateful to be here. Super, super excited.
And we're so excited to have you here too. Now, Oliver, this is your first launch too. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And how does it feel to be here just a little bit away from watching the first group of astronauts in your lifetime on their way to the moon?
It feels like very, very happy and surprised.
So if you had one word of encouragement or something to say to the crew who's sitting on that rocket right now, what would you say?
What?
Go Artemis. Go Artemis. Thanks so much, Megan.
I would say have a nice trip.
Yeah. You would say have a nice trip?
I did hear that answer. I would say have a nice trip. You know, Leah, that was a hard question. You know, it's really hard to come up with a spot what to say to the crew who's about to make history today.
Yeah.
And so the Artemis 2 crew, again, ZGI, Zero Gravity Indicator. It's a plushie, a soft toy that is brought in to the spacecraft with astronauts so that it can be a visual indicator for when we have reached the weightlessness of space, right?
Yeah, you saw a little replica there that Lucas had, and then in some of the views in the cabin view, you could see it swinging and hanging earlier. So I think actually Jenny was the one who installed it into the capsule.
Oh, really?
Yesterday, yeah. So.
Oh, we have to unpack a lot here. We got to talk about Jenny, who we will get to here in a second. But then, yes, we will also go back into the capsule so that we can show you where the ZGI is now. But the ZGI was chosen by the crew after a contest where the crew asked for submissions. They got submissions from around the world to, again, design their ZGI that is going with them to the moon.
It's kind of like any other road trip. You need clothes, food, a map, your favorite toy. Really. Except this toy has a job to do up there because this is a zero gravity indicator. While not a scientific instrument, this safe and soft object tells the strapped-in astronauts that they've reached weightlessness. For Artemis 2, the crew wanted a one-of-a-kind ZGI, so we asked you to come up with it.
Thanks everyone for sending in your entries from around the world. Over 2,600 of you submitted.
And we loved seeing all of your contributions. It was a really difficult decision because each design had a unique quality that stood out to our crew.
In the end, we were able to narrow it down to a top 5 from Finland, Canada, Peru, and 2 from the United States, Kansas and California.
In the end, we went with one called Rise. It was a design inspired by the Earthrise photo taken on Apollo 8, which is very special to our crew.
With the winner chosen, next came the task of bringing it to life here in the Thermal Blanket Lab at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. This lab specializes in custom materials to protect sensitive spacecraft equipment and is perfect for creating a ZGI that meets the rigorous safety standards of NASA.
Because you have to be concerned with whether the thread's going to outgas or if it will hold up, if it's flame retardant. This is the Rise ZGI doll. All I have left to do is to close the opening here and hand sew the hat on, make sure its stuffing is stuffed in there. And we have our pocket here for the SD card.
And on that tiny SD card will be millions of names submitted to virtually join the crew aboard Orion.
Got Rise. Not the real one, obviously, but this is a replica. I mean, so clever for Lucas and his family to design.
Yeah, I love that he replicated the famous picture that we all love of Earthrise, and then I love that the bill represents the space in between the moon and Earth. It's just such a cute and wonderful way to represent this mission.
Yeah, and again, Earthrise, very important to this crew. It harkens back to the picture that was taken by the Apollo 8 crew where they saw Earthrise, and so very appropriate since, again, now here we are going to see Earthrise again with this mission.
Yep.
So yeah, so this is little Rise here. And then you heard in that video that there is an SD card that is zipped inside with the real ZGI with the crew. So get this, more than 5 million people submitted their names as part of NASA's Send Your Name to Space campaign. And actually, Christina said that her niece and nephew's names are inside that SD card.
How cool is that? Her nieces and nephews are going to go with her.
Yeah. Love this. Love that people are engaging in such a cool way. And actually, if we take a look back inside of Orion, we can actually see the actual ZGI inside with the crew. As we said, the purpose of zero gravity indicator is to show when we've reached the weightlessness of space. Now, I know that it's probably dark in there because, as we said, the crew decided to just dim it a little bit for them. But here again, as we see Reed on your left, Victor on your right. Below Victor, or next to Victor, again, because they're on their back, it's a little weird. It's a little hard to explain their orientation. But between basically Victor and Christina is where Jenny Gibbons has placed the zero gravity indicator. And Jenny, who, again, Nicole just brought up, Jenny is one of the backup crew members. So we mentioned how Andre is the backup crew member for the NASA astronauts. Jenny is the backup crew member for Jeremy.
Yeah, Jenny's one of our Canadian astronauts, and yeah, so she's been also helping with preparations for today and helping get the White Room ready, get the capsule ready, and she's actually going to be a Capcom for Artemis 2 as well.
Yeah, she's from Calgary, Alberta, completed astronaut training in 2020, mechanical engineer, combustion scientist, and actually before becoming an astronaut, she was an assistant professor. So again, another very well-accomplished person on the team. And I know the Artemis 2 crew has really enjoyed working alongside both Andre and Jenny.
Yeah, actually, Jenny was our EBQ mentor when I went through our AskCanner initial training, so she helped us with all of our spacewalk training, which was kind of cool as well.
Okay, and there we have Andre again, number 2, with the rest of the closeout crew team there. Why don't we get another check with Daryl and see how the launch countdown is going.
Still going quite smoothly here from Firing Room 1 here at the Kennedy Space Center. Launch team working no major constraints to launch, which is great news. We did get an update on a weather balloon that the launch weather officer and his team released. This is an important weather balloon released right around the 3-hour mark. And what it told us is that winds are around 10 to 11 knots in the upper parts of the atmosphere. That's important information for the launch abort system. Should the astronauts need the LAS, this would, of course, pull the Orion spacecraft off the top of the rocket in case there were an emergency, and then take them offshore to a water landing in the Atlantic Ocean. And so the winds are pushing onshore. And because they're pushing onshore, the launch weather officer is keeping a close eye on the strength of those winds, because if the Orion were to come off the top, and it's powered by 3 rocket motors which can propel it or pull it especially fast off the top of the rocket, it would go up into the air thousands of feet and then splash down in the water. And if you've got wind pushing against it, you don't want that spacecraft to come back and land on land. So they're watching that very closely because of the onshore flow. That onshore flow is also what's giving us a little weather action down to the south of us along what's called the beach line, 528. We got a whole lot of people out there. We're getting ready to watch the Artemis 2 historic launch. Well, they just got a good soaking. Line of rain showers, I should say, passed through that area and soaked the place. Certainly rain is a possibility, spotty showers from time to time, but overall the launch weather officer tells us that we are trending towards getting that stuff to all push to the west the closer we get to our launch window. A reminder, that window is from 6:24 p.m. to 8:24 p.m. Eastern Time. We don't have a specific T0 at this moment. There's a lot that needs to be calculated before we get there. We also need to get through the rest of the countdown on time. As of right now, we are right on time. The launch countdown is going exactly as planned. That's not something that we saw certainly in Artemis 1. There was a lot of flexing in the timeline during those 3 launch attempts back in 2022. But so far today, on our first launch attempt, we're really enjoying some really solid countdown work, some solid operations by the launch team so far. And to quote our friend Lucas, who created Earthrise, we all really like that. We'll send it back to the host desk.
Thanks so much, Daryl. Yes, we really like that, and we really like Rise and Lucas. So thank you for that. That was really cute. Okay, so again, here we are in the big box here. We have our full view of the rocket, looking glorious on there with, again, some clouds, but still weather is good for launch today. And then we have the closeout team continuing to do work in the White Room. We got confirmation that they have successfully completed pressurizing the counterbalance pressurization. Basically, as Daryl explained it before, the side hatch for the crew module is very heavy. So in order to open it, there needs to be pressure applied to it, and that's what we just completed, right?
Right, that's exactly it. So the CBA, that counterbalance assembly that we're talking about, has to be pressurized. It's a pneumatic system to help. So in the case of an egress, Christina's the one that has to open that hatch. So once she gets it unlatched and unlocked, then that pneumatic system will help move the hatch. It weighs a lot, and so the average human cannot open that hatch by themselves. And so that's why we want to make sure that the system is pressurized, that it's not going to leak, and that it is ready to go in case they need to open the hatch.
So that is complete, and now what is happening are the seal leak checks. So that is in progress. Again, 2 seals go through the entirety of the hatch, and we will take the seals to pressure, hold it for about a minute, and just make sure that it is holding pressure. Again, we want to make sure that the crew has a safe, pressurized environment in any sort of situation while they're in Orion.
Yep, that's right. So we're going to take a look at it. We're going to take a look at the starting pressure, and then after a certain amount of time, we'll take a look at the ending pressure, and then there are certain tolerances that we will accept for flight.
2 hours, 37 minutes and counting from the opening of our 2-hour launch window today at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time. After liftoff, it takes less than 10 minutes to reach Earth's orbit. Let's learn more about today's ascent profile with Gary in Mission Control.
Hey, Megan. We are monitoring here in Mission Control Houston. Flight controllers are looking at data from integrity in the Space Launch System during the countdown. We're looking at some of the events happening in the White Room now and just making sure that all criteria is met to commit to launch and ascent today. It's the team you see in this room that would be looking after ascent, which is a very dynamic phase of flight. And after solid rocket booster ignition of the Space Launch System, it's this team that takes over control of the mission. There are voices you'll hear upon ascent, calls being relayed between Stan Love, the Capcom you see here in this shot in Mission Control Houston, that's the voice from this room, and the Artemis 2 crew on a communications channel aptly named Orion to Earth. Here are the calls you may hear during this part of the mission. Capcom Stan Love, his first call after responding to the crew's successful roll pitch maneuver at 30 seconds is AMT high. This notes that should we lose just one of the main engines, an alternate mission in low Earth orbit can still be achieved. At 1 minute 25 seconds, you'll hear max Q on PDL. This notes that reaching the moment of maximum dynamic pressure on the spacecraft. This event happens to be in line with a communication switch to another ground station, the Ponce de Leon Inlet Tracking Annex, located about 35 miles north of Kennedy. At 2 minutes 45 seconds, you'll hear SM primed upper stage RCS ready. This means that the European Service Module propulsion system that's prepared for the next phase of aborts after the launch abort system jettisons, and the reaction control thrusters on the inner rim cryogenic propulsion stage that enable pointing and maneuvering are ready. At 3 minutes 50 seconds, you'll hear voice check on TDRS at the Kármán line. At this point, the launch abort system has jettisoned and revealed the Orion capsule underneath. This check verifies that the now exposed Orion antennas have a good signal over the tracking and data relay relay satellites, which is part of a geosynchronous satellite network and the same assets that are used aboard the International Space Station. This communication switch happens to be at the Kármán line, a widely recognized boundary about 62 miles, statute miles, or 100 kilometers above the Earth's surface, where the air is too thin for conventional aircraft to fly and marks the point where our astronauts leave Earth and enter space. At 5 minutes 16 seconds, you'll hear the call 3-engine press. This notes that if one of the 4 main engines on the SLS core stage were to fail, 3 engines can carry the crew to a nominal main engine cutoff and proceed with the expected mission timeline. This is an important call that gives more assurance of continuing today's moon mission. At 7 minutes, you'll hear expect nominal shutdown. You'll hear this call should the main engine performance be as expected up to this point. Shutdown plans can vary and may impact G-forces experienced by the crew or future burn plans, but a nominal shutdown is more indicative of continuing the mission on the expected timeline. At 7 minutes 30 seconds, you'll hear AOA open. This notes crossing into a new abort profile. At this point, an abort would use Orion engines to escape the core stage, and the altitude and velocity are enough to make it 1 lap around the Earth and aim for a splashdown in the Pacific Ocean instead of the Atlantic. And then, of course, shortly after 8 minutes, you'll hear nominal MECO. You won't hear MECO right away. Teams here wait until the core stage has separated and the trajectory is confirmed as expected before that call to the crew. Now, this ascent profile is approximate, as there may be calls that move a few seconds depending on the trajectory, and of course these are the calls and times for a nominal trajectory. Teams in this room have been training extensively to prepare for any and all scenarios, and they are confident and ready to take this crew into space today. In today's pre-brief, the flight director, Judd Freeling, expressed his confidence to the team, citing the hundreds of simulations to prepare for this very moment. These are the calls you'll hear during ascent less than 3 hours from now, but now we'll turn our attention to the countdown to launch and send it back to you, Megan, at the Space Coast.
Thanks so much, Gary. Now, one of today's 4 astronauts, of course, Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen. Let's go now to Jasmine with her next guest.
Thanks so much, Megan. Yeah, we're joining you live now from the Operations Support Building here at Kennedy, where crowds are starting to gather, and we're honored to have Lisa Campbell of the Canadian Space Agency joining us. Lisa, Jeremy Hansen is about to make history as the first Canadian to venture to the moon. What does that milestone mean for your agency?
Thanks so much, Jasmine. It's wonderful to be here. It's such a special moment, both for our astronaut colleague Jeremy Hansen, but also for Canada. We're here because of decades of public investment in space robotics, in space collaboration, and so for our country, we're very proud. He's so ready. He's been waiting for this his whole life, preparing, training, and he's a wonderful example of Canada.
Yeah, and that's a perfect way to capture Jeremy. He really has been prepping for this his whole life. This will be his first space flight. So what has it been like watching him become part of this Artemis 2 crew?
Well, as I mentioned to you, I've known Jeremy since 2020, and he's a colonel, a fighter pilot, a father, and he really is a very dedicated, passionate human being. So both for him to realize this goal of being an astronaut and flying, he also is hopeful that witnessing that will raise awareness about the value of a space program, of the benefits here on Earth, of exploring the universe and our place in it.
Wow, that's beautifully said. And really, this international collaboration has been going on for quite some time now. We've worked together in low Earth orbit and now going into deep space together. So why is it so important that we have these international partnerships?
It makes us stronger. We can go faster and further together. Canada is one of the original signatories of the Artemis Accords, and Canada and the United States have been partnered for more than 60 years in space.
Wow, that is phenomenal, Lisa. And this really is a team effort in many ways. We also have Jenny Gibbons.
Yes.
She'll be listening in on Capcom. What is her role going to be like?
So Dr. Jenny Gibbons has been training all along as the Canadian backup with the prime crew. Last night, she was in the Orion capsule checking out all of the communications, making sure all of the systems test out and work perfectly. And then she will be among the first lunar Capcom, helping the astronauts navigate during their mission.
Wow, Lisa, that is so exciting. Any final words for the nation of Canada before today's mission?
We are so proud, so excited, and we can't wait to welcome Jeremy home.
Fantastic. Lisa Campbell, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Of course. And with that, let's get back to NASA's Megan Cruz.
And right now,
Go ahead. Ma'am, TBA press has been completed. Did you see any drop in pressure? And MS1, we saw just a little bit. It is just over 2,600 now. Copy. Thank you, ma'am.
again, a call out to mission specialist Christina Cook. Again, it was her responsibility to monitor the pressure on the counterbalance system that will help open the side hatch. And she did report a drop in pressure, but it seems like it's within nominal limits.
Right. They might have had a small drop, but you know, we have a starting pressure and an ending pressure, and as long as the difference isn't too high, then we will take that. And the engineers know exactly what they're looking at for in terms of that delta pressure.
And so again, that milestone on the checklist of things that have to happen before they launch today, that is complete. The crew, again, still inside comfortably as the closeout crew team work to close the side hatch. Again, a separate seal leak check, followed by a full cabin leak check, and then they will close the last abort system hatch.
Lots to do still in the White Room, and marching down the countdown timeline well.
And so Bill, again, number 3 there, he is holding a silver flex hose. That hose is what will be connected to Orion in order to do that cabin leak check. So again, it does seem like we continue to march down through the milestones in this countdown. Hopefully lifting off today within our 2-hour launch window that opens at 6:24 p.m. Now, right now, people inside the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex are learning about this mission. There are great exhibits there about the rocket and Orion, and of course, our Megan Carter with the moon board.
All right, Megan and Nicole, yeah, you mentioned that checklist before launch. That checklist is going to continue during the mission, as well as there are several vital objectives that we are hoping to accomplish with this mission. So we've talked about the rocket. We've talked a little bit about Orion. Obviously, during Artemis 1, we had that test flight, and there were no humans on board. That is our one big difference for this one, and we are going to have that crew this time. So what are they going to be up to during this mission? Let me tell you just a little bit. Now, for Artemis 1, like I mentioned, we were really focused on the SLS, making sure it had the power and capabilities that we needed. We were also checking out the Orion spacecraft in deep space environments, making sure that it was good to go. Now, for Artemis 2, we are going to be taking the testing for Orion to the next level by adding that human component. So those test objectives are going to start even before launch. Like you mentioned, they are out there making their way through that checklist. But these objectives are going to start now, and that includes safety. So one really great example of safety is going to be something called the egress baskets. They're out there in the spacecraft, obviously, and should a situation happen to come up, they are going to have something called the egress baskets they can get in, and those are going to zip line them essentially down to the ground within seconds to safety. Another great example of those safety procedures are going to be the LAS, or the launch abort system that I mentioned earlier. Just a reminder, that's the one that can pull the crew and capsule away from any danger within a few minutes of into the launch. Now, those are just a couple quick examples, but our recovery teams have been training extensively, quite a lot, to make sure that they are ready and prepared for any challenging situation that could possibly arise. All right. Several other objectives that we are going to be looking at are also going to be communication checkouts. That is going to be vital. I know we talked a little bit earlier about all the maneuvering that they're going to be able to do, but we want to make sure that they have full communication ability from space to ground so that we can fully support them here. We are also going to be checking out those life support systems. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the service module and what it is going to do for the crew, but we want to make sure that those life support systems are fully functioning, obviously before we send them farther into deep space. That's going to be critical for them. So on top of being able to maneuver the spacecraft and check everything out, we are also going to be making sure that everything is fully functioning. So as you can see, big part of this mission is to make sure that the spacecraft, the hardware, and all the operations are working and that the data is going to make sense. And speaking of recovery, we are also going to have the opportunity at splashdown to recover that launch or that flight data, and we're going to be able to take that back, analyze it, and make sure there are if there are any enhancements we need or changes we need to make before our next missions, we'll be able to do so. So lots to do. They're going to stay very busy, obviously. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Megan.
2 hours, 25 minutes and counting, and the crowd, check it out, continues to grow at our Banana Creek viewing location. They will have a great view of launch, and we will go back now to Leah Martin, who's standing with her next guests.
Hey, Megan, yeah, we're surrounded by thousands of people, some here local from the Space Coast, but we actually have quite a few people who have traveled a pretty far distance to be with us today. I'm actually joined here by a group from the International Space Station Ambassadors Program who have come from all over the globe. Saku, you're here from Japan, you've come Val from Mexico, and then we have brother and sister Cosma and Jesco here who are visiting from Germany. You actually told me that you participated in the NASA Rover Challenge in Huntsville. How was that experience, and how is it kind of participating there in Alabama and then being here today?
So it is an amazing experience because you meet so many young people with visions, with dreams, with ideas which inspire you and motivate you. And it's even better to be here now to see the SLS launch because we are going back to the moon, and that's what we're working for.
Absolutely. And, you know, the Artemis missions, we talked a lot about the Artemis Accords and this being an international effort. You were actually telling me, Saku, that you're interested in becoming an astronaut with JAXA, pursuing your PhD to be able to do that. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, actually, I applied for the Japanese Aerospace Agency, the astronaut selection like 2 years ago, and then I didn't make it all the way, but I'm still working on it, and hopefully I can be at the launch pad sometime, and then I hope to go back to the moon and Mars, and yeah, I'm working on it.
Absolutely incredible. And Val, you're here from Mexico. We were talking a little bit about women in space. This is a team who, you know, is predominantly made up of women. What is it like knowing that Christina is on that rocket right now, about to be the first woman to travel around the moon?
I think that's such an amazing news. It's just so inspiring that we are taking the first Black person and also the first woman to the moon. It's just the first step in humanity and a big step in equality as well.
Megan, a lot of excitement here, not just in Florida, but from around the globe, and we're keeping our eye on that rocket, and we're ready to see it lift off.
Thanks, Leah. Yeah, a lot of excitement, but also a lot of inspiration. Again, this is part of, or a big part of the reason why.
130.6.
Good readback. Ops 1 voltage, 131.3.
I copy 131.3.
Again, those numbers you hear, they're referring to specific steps in the launch countdown that the crew have to step through in order to get us to launch today. And so we were saying, yes, inspiration, a big part of why NASA does what it does. We want to go together and we want to explore together to learn more about ourselves and here on Earth.
Yeah, humans, I think, naturally want to explore, and so going together, like Lisa said earlier, we're going to go farther and faster than we possibly can alone. And, you know, what a way to celebrate that today.
Yeah.
Going back to the moon in the first time in over half a century.
And we have that great shot there in our small box of the rocket on the pad. And at the very top there, our Artemis 2 crew. Right now, we know that the crew has begun the closeout crew has begun doing that cabin leak check. So they are currently pressurizing the cabin, and it sounded like it would take about 6 to 8 minutes for them to get to pressure, and then they have to hold that pressure for 5 minutes, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so there's quite a bit of volume. You know, we talked about it being a 6-person tent. I think it's 330 cubic feet. Don't quote me on that number, but you know, they have to pressurize that capsule, and then like we talked about, take that initial pressure, wait 5 minutes, and take the second pressure.
Yeah, and then it takes about 6 to 8 minutes again to depressurize the cabin. So this process will take a few minutes.
Ascent switch configuration complete.
OTC copies. Thank you.
And then after the cabin leak checks, then they will finally close the last abort system hatch. So again, chugging along in the countdown, really excited to, again, continue to hear the crew's voice inside Orion, stepping through all the procedures.
Yes, it's exciting to hear them making progress, right? It's all good news hearing the crew talk to the ground and working together to get to the launch.
And what I think is really cool is that this is the first time NASA is going to have astronauts in low Earth orbit, but also in deep space at the moon. So here's a message from some of the crew aboard the International Space Station right now.
Hello, Megan, and a big hello to everyone around the world counting down together to the launch of this historic flight test. If we weren't in microgravity, we would also be on the edge of our seats.
Here on the International Space Station, all of us are honored to have the chance to wish our fellow explorers Godspeed. Throughout human history, the moon has sparked our imagination, curiosity, and wonder. With our return to the moon, we're not only going to be learning about its history, the history of our solar system and of our planet, but also about our place in the cosmos.
We are so proud of the Artemis team and so excited for what you will see and learn on behalf of all of humanity during your trip around the moon. As we push the boundaries of exploration and expand our knowledge with scientific discovery, we advance our collective civilization together as one.
Test flights are crucial to the mission of exploration. We all learn in test flight schools that the more challenging the missions are, the more incremental the tests should be. This Artemis 2 mission is one more increment on the way to further exploration.
Thank you to the crew, our friends, for your dedication. And from the entire Expedition 74 crew, thank you to all of the teams that had a hand in getting the Artemis 2 mission to where it is today.
Back to you, Megan, as the countdown continues.
Oh, I love that so much. I just love seeing them there. And again, you have to remember the International Space Station is an orbiting lab. We learned so much there, and we're going to learn so much more from Artemis 2, because this isn't just a test flight. It's an opportunity to learn more about the moon, deep space, and how humans can live and work so far from home. So here are some of the science objectives that NASA hopes to accomplish with Artemis 2.
Artemis 2 is our return of humans to the moon, flying around the moon on board Orion. But along with that, we're doing a lot of great science.
One of the exciting things about the Artemis missions to the moon is that science is actually a fundamental pillar of why we explore, why we're going, what we're doing in Artemis.
I think it's incredibly exciting that not only are we testing the vehicle, but we're testing science on board. Science where the astronauts are conducting experiments, science riding along with the astronauts. We have astronauts looking outside the window and really observing the lunar surface.
It will help us understand the deep space environment. It will help us understand how that environment affects our astronauts, our systems, and life in general.
So deep space is a challenge for us because you have to leave Earth's protective magnetic field. Here in low Earth orbit, the crew members are protected from some of the harmful radiation. Going to the moon, they'll no longer be protected, so they'll have a higher radiation exposure.
Much like Artemis 1, we have so many radiation sensors and detectors that are inside the capsule so that we can fully understand and appreciate the radiation environment for protecting our astronauts. In my hand here, I'm holding a tissue chip model. This is the exact design that's going to be flying alongside the astronauts. We'll be collecting samples from each of the crew members, and we can make these organ chips out of the astronauts themselves. So every crew member will have their own avatar on board, and then upon return, we can evaluate that deep space radiation environment and what that compares to the astronaut themselves. Not only are they going to help change the course of medicine for the astronauts, but revolutionizing that on Earth as well.
We're looking at sleep, we're looking at team dynamics, we're looking at how you interact with the environment. We're also looking at the immune system, so what are the biomarkers? We're using saliva as a method to study hormones and different things in your body that may change during a mission like this. And then finally, how do we function after microgravity
being close to the moon, then returning to Earth.
Which will ultimately help us achieve our goal of getting humans to Mars.
And then on top of that, we have an opportunity to look at the moon from deep space on the far side for the first time in over 50 years.
Having human eyeballs and brains back around the moon is going to unlock a new generation of lunar science discovery. The human eyeball is capable of taking in so much data in just a split second. They'll be able to tackle impact history, volcanic history. They'll be able to look at how the albedo, or kind of the shade and hue of the moon and the color of the moon, can tell us something about how that terrain evolved over time. We're integrating science in ways that have never been integrated into human exploration before. We have a front room mission control flight controller position called the Science Officer. We have a brand new science back room where it's basically our brain trust of lunar scientists and geologists supporting the crews of the future. And Artemis 2 will allow us to really test how this works so that future missions are really set up for success.
We'll also be deploying some CubeSats. They're small shoebox-sized spacecraft of their own. They're each provided by another country, one of our partners. As they conduct their research, they'll complement what we are doing at the moon with Orion.
It is so incredibly exciting to be a part of this mission.
It has been, really one of the privileges of a lifetime.
I can see the work I'm doing benefit crew members right now and benefit the crew members in the future. So it's incredibly exciting and it's very rewarding.
As this rocket launches humanity off of the Earth, we'll be setting the stage through our science to prepare humanity to leave Earth and explore the solar system.
And what we learn during this and future Artemis missions to the moon will eventually get us to Mars. Here's Jasmine Hopkins again, now with Nikki Fox, Associate Administrator.